Hold on. Let me just think of how I'm going to start it. All right, homebrewers, this one is for you. This is Fourpure At, and I'm going to talk to you guys about how to brew a beer called Port of Call at home. So that's a new beer that we just launched. It's a one-off beer. It's an Earl Grey and Lychee Session IPA. I'm not going to give you guys all the information, but I am going to talk you through the recipe and give you guys enough information, I think, for you guys to either recreate it at home or maybe to get inspired and make something else that, you know, you can sort of riff off some of the ideas that I'm going to give you guys. So first of all, cheers. It's Friday, it's 4 o'clock. I'm ready for a beer. Water is something that we take really seriously, and that's really important to us here. We actually use 50% reverse osmosis water, and we dechlorinate all of our brewing liquor before we brew. You guys don't have to perfectly recreate the water that we use. The main things to look out for are your calcium, your chloride, your sulfate, and your mash pH. Also, obviously, looking at your sparge pH, I guess, too. But for this beer specifically, we targeted 150 parts per million calcium. We try to target that number in general for our hoppier sort of session style beers. 5.2, good mash pH for a beer like this, for a lighter hoppier style. We use phosphoric acid for our adjustment for a beer like this. So that's water. Let's talk about the grist, okay? So we have 3 malts in this beer. It's not really a malt forward beer. I'm not going to tell you exactly what percentages they're all in, but there are some oats in there just for that extra sort of mouthfeel and that texture. And then we've got pale ale malt, and we have lager malt. So we use both in this. I like to cut the breadiness of the pale ale malt with that sort of lighter, crisp sort of Pilsner malt. I think especially on a more hop forward style like this, that's a good technique to use. But basically 3 malts, oats, pale ale, lager. The beer itself is 4.8%. We have an original gravity of 11.8 Plato and a final gravity of 3 Plato. We use a lot of late hopping in beers like this. It's 48 IBUs. 3/4 of those IBUs are derived from additions at the very end of the boil and in the whirlpool. So we do a 30-minute whirlpool rest. And the 2 hops that we used for the flavor and aroma additions in this beer were Cascade and Simcoe. We used them in equal proportions, but we split them out across multiple additions at the end of the boil and in the whirlpool. Makes quite a big difference actually how you layer on these hops for these later flavor and aroma stages. So definitely play around and experiment with that. The remaining IBUs come from the bittering addition at the start of the boil. We used Magnum, nice and neutral, just to get the IBUs up to the target level that we wanted to hit. The reason for using Cascade and Simcoe specifically are that Simcoe has a really nice kind of passion fruit character that I thought would complement the lychee, and Cascade has a lychee-like character, and I wanted to layer in those flavors early using the hops. Also, the sort of floral notes and the citrus notes from Cascade will work well with the tea because we used Earl Grey tea. We ferment pretty much all of our ales using a neutral American ale strains, one that we do get from White Labs. A beer like this we'd ferment at 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Let me just have a sip. That's good. Pitching rates are important. We pitch 1 million cells per mil per degree Plato for all of our sort of low to medium strength ales. When fermentation is done, we wait for the yeast to settle a little bit. Add your lychee. Don't go too heavy. Use either natural fruit, concentrate, puree, whatever you have available. Again, quality is important. This is a little bit more about hops and about tea than it is about lychee. Lychee is just something that sort of ties together, I think, the tea character with the hop character. But add it towards the end of the fermentation. Be bold, but don't be too bold. The tea is really more important. Now is the time to add your tea. So we used a lot of tea. We used really good Earl Grey tea from a really boutique, fancy tea supplier. Really makes sense that really important that you use the best possible ingredients for a beer like this, where you're showcasing different flavors, like tea, for instance. It's better to use more and then have a shorter contact time. So what we did, we just put them in big bags, added the bags directly to the tank, tasted it every day, and we thought it was good. We took the tea out. But you get a better character by using more tea for shorter contact than you do using less tea for a longer contact period. So when you've taken the tea out, you have to dry hop it. So dry hopping is, in this beer, a 50% Simcoe, 25% Cascade. So we're building on those flavors that we added in the brew house. And then we have 25% Willamette and Mandarina Bavaria. It has like a sort of subtle floral character that I think always works really well with the tea beers that we've done. So I think every tea beer we've ever made, we dry hopped with a little bit of Willamette. And Mandarina Bavaria is just a hop that I think works really well in a beer like this. That little bit of citrus character plus that sort of almost like quasi-noble, like Germanic kind of herbal, spicy character that it lends. Just adds another layer of complexity, and it's really more of a background hop to the Simcoe and the Cascade in particular. Make sure that you go pretty heavy on the dry hops. It is a session IPA. It's got to be really aromatic. It's got to stand up to the tea. It's got to work with the tea. You don't want it to dominate. But remember, I told you to be bold with the tea as well. So you really want to be big on flavor. So then you take your hops out, or whatever you do, rack the beer off the hops, whatever your preferred approach is to dry hopping. I like drinking a beer like this, sort of bright. So we actually didn't filter this beer, but we did centrifuge it just to remove most of the particulates. Giving it good cold conditioning time will help make the beer nice and bright and clear. If you want to find the beer, you can. We don't find our beers, but you know, go ahead if that's what you like to do. Carbonate it, drink it, enjoy. I think what I'm giving you here mostly though is like a template. You can play around with the hops, the grist, things like tea or you know, you could use coffee, and then you could think, oh, you know, what kind of hops would work well with the coffee. You use some really nice coffee from Kenya that's got like these like blueberry notes, right? Well, you could do like coffee and blueberry sort of session IPA. That could be really cool. And you could think about, what about the hops? What would work well there? You know, maybe Mosaic would work well in a beer like that. So like, and maybe let's make it a little bit stronger and a little bit creamier. So let's make it like 7%. Like, just play around. But I'm giving you a template. Just and think about what you do with it. That's up to you. Anyway, I'm going to enjoy this one, and I'm going to continue to develop my coffee, Mosaic, blueberry IPA idea as well. So I'm going to have a good weekend drinking lots of beer. I hope you guys do too. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, you know, all that good stuff. Submit your comments and questions. In the description, we'll have a little bit more recipe information. Get in touch if you want more information about any of our beers and how to brew them at home. Happy to share. Have a good one, guys.
Turn it off.
You don't have to turn it off. I think you just make it quieter. I don't know. He's very particular.